Hey, it's DJ. And you know what's more important than politics? What's more important than conspiracy theories? The fundamental nature of what's going on with existence. Like, what's really happening here overall? Like, why, yeah, sure. What is happening with reality, with existence, with the universe? Like, how is this working? What are we? How did we come to be? Right? And there are very different perspectives on this. Okay? Like, the idea that we generally have an agreement on this is obviously not true. Some people believe in God. Some people don't believe in God. And those are two very different views here. And honestly, I would say God is at the core of the entire conspiracy theory. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that today, but we're going to touch on some interesting stuff here. And so here's where I think people should be able to get down and be able to understand and take a position on. Is first, you kind of got to get the most basic materialism there is. Like, understand what that would entail. A very basic form of materialism, one that got more formally developed a few hundred years ago. Okay, with like the scientific revolution, there was a little bit of a dualism there too. We're not going to get into a whole lot of details, everything here today. Okay, but get down this basic materialism. And we're talking like before quantum mechanics and Einstein's relativity theories challenged this, okay? They had this very basic form of materialism developed, okay? And it's like the clockwork universe, okay? And here's the basic premise. The universe is a material system wound up like a clock. And it's just unfolding through these basic material laws. All there is this matter. And matter just follows these laws. And that's what there is. And that's all there is. And particularly as this was formulated pre-Einstein's relativity theories, pre-quantum mechanics, okay, it was like this absolute space and time which provided this kind of stage to which matter then just developed. And matter just follows these laws, and it just kind of works. And then it just happened to form life. And life just keeps working through these processes of, natural selection and random mutation. How exactly does the random mutation fit into that? Well, you tell me, okay? And then, and the basic premise here, right, is everything's just can be reduced and understood to its smallest parts. That's the basic reductionism. A system isn't over and above the sum of its parts, because all there is the material systems, or the material basic constructs, and then they're unfolding in this linear causation manner, where, it's just like gears of a clock. It's just all spinning around, and everything only affects each other by hitting each other, and then it develops in this linear pattern. And so, in this view, consciousness could be nothing more than the epiphenomenon, which is this byproduct produced out of this materiality, and that consciousness comes out of it somehow, but doesn't have the ability to feed back and affect the material, because all that is happening is in a linear progression of material states. Okay? The clockwork universe. Okay, this was formulated. And then it's one thing that's, what they did here is, they formulated this idea of this clockwork universe, this very basic form of materialism, okay? Understand what that is, okay? Because this is a thing that happened, okay? And what if you believed in that, you would reject all spiritual traditions, anything to do with theology, or not even, the mainstream religions of the day, but then all the pagan, all these indigenous, which all had a different framework than this linear progression of material states. Many times it was an organic view that the universe was alive, that consciousness was embedded within it, that systems could be over and above the sum of their parts. This is a very big one to get here, that the very basic materialist perspective, a system cannot be over and above the sum of its parts, which means it cannot feed back down and affect it. A whole, it means nothing in the mechanistic view. Everything is just parts, and it's just the mind's illusions that posit on these whole structures, because there's no such thing, or certainly not causally, and so this is a very important point to get. Get that basic materialism down. And then you tell me, you either defend that premise or you say something different. Because this premise, like I was saying, was used to reduce and get rid of all the spiritual, all the indigenous type of organic models of the universe. Okay? And, like I say, there would be no afterlife. There would be no, because all these different, you got to get that, right? All these different types of cultures existed in the past, right? And had these different kind of spiritual beliefs, right? That we're not all talking Abrahamic religion here, right? Just particularly with the big three of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. You can, right? They got their problems, right? But, this mechanistic view challenged all different types of spiritual beliefs across the board, not just Abrahamic religion, okay? And so, that was used, and very tied in with governments. And so, but then what I'm saying here, too, is, okay, so then, that framework was made, a clockwork universe. Only linear progression of states. Everything can be reduced and understood through the discrete parts that make it up, because there's no communication from a whole system, feedback, and effective parts. There's no top-down causation. Okay? And so, part of the basic clockwork universe view was challenged by Einstein's relativity theories. Which, space and time are relative and all that, right? And it challenged that kind of Newtonian framework of space and time as a state. And then quantum mechanics further challenged this, and you got quantum field theory, which isn't that different than what I'm going to start saying a little bit today, but, quantum field theory is, the particles don't just exist in themselves, they're a excitation of the field. And that, and then quantum entanglement, that two systems can be entangled and affect each other, or at least there's some sort of like communication or something happening, not traveled through the medium of space and time. And so, what's going on there? And so, take a stance on that. Like, are you either, because I've studied a lot of philosophy in school, and they taught reductionism, and they taught physicalism, means that weren't much, really aren't any different than this clockwork universe philosophy. It's essentially that saying, all spirituality, all that's bullshit. That's what they taught in the schools. I studied philosophy in schools about 10 years ago. That's clearly what they taught. I studied at 2 universities. They taught the same shit at both universities. Reductionism, they heavily pushed that. It really isn't that different than the clockwork universe basic materialist model, even though that's basically challenged by the different discoveries in theoretical physics with Einstein's relativity theories and quantum mechanics. And that's, the challenge of modern theoretical physics is finding that remedy between quantum mechanics and relativity theories, because, the relativity theories posit like a continuous field and the quantum mechanics field is discrete. And, we're talking about the same field, aren't we? But it's, their equations and their models are as if it's like 2 different fields, and they're not compatible. They're not compatible models. They describe it very differently. So, that's part of the challenge in mainstream theory. Well, all theoretical physics is to provide a view which can, a unified field theory that, this is one field, right? So, we're describing one field that can account for the observed effects of quantum mechanics and relativity. Okay? Well, that's what I'm saying here, is you got to get down the basic materialist model and either defend that or provide some other philosophy, ideally with some reference to theoretical physics, that shows what else you're talking about. And ideally in a way that touches on all the different spiritual systems of the past, and kind of understands that philosophy, understands the kind of organic living universe models, and takes a stance on this. Are you staying steadfast in that kind of mechanistic materialist philosophy, even though, with certain models of theoretical physics that try to account for the discoveries of quantum mechanics and relativity theories? Are you trying to provide a philosophy that accounts for all that, or a theoretical physics model which accounts for those discoveries, but also takes a stance on the philosophy and says, no, nothing to spirituality at all? Or are you saying that, no, there is something to spirituality? Because what that really affects them, because, right, we're talking about these people out there. I don't like to say certain words sometimes, but, they're raping children, eating babies, eating people. Like, what are they doing? Ritualistic sacrifice to the gods, to the demons? What? So, if they're doing these things, well, they must not believe in some sort of linear materialistic model. Why are they doing it? What are ritualistic sacrifices? What are demons? Right? Gods, demons, other types of beings. Like, what are they? How does this work? Right? That would all be rejected in a certain philosophy. You can sit there and be like, well, I believe in, I reject the clockwork universe in its simplicity form in favor of the discoveries of general relativity, special relativity, and quantum mechanics, but I still hold on to the philosophy which suggests and was built off of a linear progression model which denies all spirituality. I did that voice for a little too long. That was kind of hard. It wasn't even that funny of a voice. I like to do funny voices. Not that one, though. That wasn't that funny. This one's funny. Right, so what are we talking about here? I just want people to have a consistent framework in their philosophy, their theoretical models of science, and their history. And their conspiracy theories, too. Because otherwise, what are you doing? What are you doing here? You don't know, do you? And so, because I posit, I go along with this holographic fractal model. I'm specifically like Nassim Haramein's holographic model, the unified physics, a generalized holographic approach that he has. But the basic, it doesn't have to be his specific model. There's a general philosophy to this. And so here's some good parts. So the basic materialism, is everything's about the particles, and the particles just exist, that's all the material particles, okay, and they exist, and they just bump into each other, and then there's just a blank framework in which they're existing, but the substance, the material substance is what matters. That's what existence is. It's the material substance and the laws guiding the material substance. That's the mechanistic machine, a linear progression model. It's just the physical or material substance that matters. And there's just this blank framework in which the material substance is going by. And so a more holographic fractal model suggests that the field is what shapes the matter. And the field exists in the mathematical, and is a geometric field. It's shaped like the flower of life patterns, and it has, it has these patterns in it, the field, because the field, the cube octahedron is within the field, and it's fractally scaled, and that's the most perfect balanced geometric array, and then it spins in on itself, and that creates the toruses within the field, and we're all just toruses within this field, and that's the feedback structure, okay? A lot to get into, I know. But, we gotta... So the field shapes the matter, and not that matter is just existing and causing everything. And then so this kind of posits a mathematical Platonism, that this construct, field geometry, exists outside of the material reality, or our perceived material reality, right? And so, the mainstream models and materialism, that mathematics is just instrumental. Okay, that there isn't, it's directly opposed to Platonic mathematics, which that math exists beyond the space-time beyond the material framework. Materialism is just a material framework. There isn't mathematical forms that exist outside of that. Whereas this is saying, like, nah, dude, that mathematical forms are the fundamental geometry, sacred geometry here. That was unnecessary, but silly. Sacred geometry, that's mathematical Platonism. And so then, it's taking a model in theoretical physics and also relating it to a better philosophy, or taking a better philosophy and relating it to models in theoretical physics, holographic fractal models. And very key. It's not just consciousness. I always talk about consciousness, but right now we're talking about like the geometry and mathematical Platonism. And these are both very important points to get here, okay? And the mathematical Platonism, it exists, and this shapes, and this provides self-organizing, because it's shaped beyond, it's not just matter following a linear progression. It's shaped and organized through the geometric framework existing fundamentally beyond it. And then it also relates, that there's a communication network, that the whole is within each part, and that's the holographic principle. And then that allows for the communication for the whole to feed back and to direct its parts, which allows for a system to be over and above the sum of its parts. Okay? This is very important. And that works also through like quantum entanglement. Okay? And so it allows the system to be over and above the sum of its parts. That's very key, because all of this generally relates back to these organic spiritual models. Okay, so we have this framework of theoretical physics, holographic fractal framework, which can relate philosophically to these organic, living cosmos spiritual models of understanding. That doesn't mean it's like Abrahamic religion is right. No, right? Just generally philosophy that relates to this type of understanding that is across the very basic notions of all spirituality. Okay? It's very important. Whereas the materialist reductionist framework does not. That directly opposes that. And a key is mathematical Platonism. You don't want to talk about consciousness? You can't handle consciousness? All right, it ain't about consciousness. It's about mathematical Platonism. What's your stance on that? You want to talk philosophy? Or, you should want to talk philosophy, right? You ought to. Right? So, the mathematical Platonism, the field exists fundamentally beyond the material structure, and it's the field that shapes the material structure and also allows a communication network within it for the systems of feedback, top-down causation systems over and above the sum of its parts. It's dynamic causation, not understood in the linear causation models. Okay. And so that's what I'm saying here. Is can relate back to all forms of ancient spirituality, or the basic philosophy that is the fundamental essence of it all. And why is that important? Well, when it comes to philosophy or politics and conspiracy theories, that's a big part of the conspiracy theories I'm putting forth here. Right? Now it's becoming this mainstream idea of like, the elites, I don't call them elite, that's not the point. They're eating babies, they're raping children. They're performing ritualistic sacrifices, that part more particularly. Ritualistic sacrifices, why are they doing this? Well, why don't they perform ritualistic sacrifices back in the day? Allegedly, for the gods, for the demons, for the deities. What? What? Right? So what are they doing here? And so when I'm asking of people is like, take a stance on like what you're saying. Are you defending the linear progression materialism? Are you denying holographic fractal models relating back to ancient spirituality? Take a stance. What is your models in theoretical physics that you're relating to defend your materialism, to defend your linear progressions? Or are you saying, no. I reject the materialism based on linear progressions. I now call it physicalism. And it's like, well then, because this is a key point to make too, is just like, okay, so if you just call physicalism anything about how the universe works, then this model could be called physicalism. And that misses the point, though, because it's saying that the mathematical structure exists fundamentally beyond the physical reality. But it's mathematical, you see? It's the geometry shaping it. It's not just like abstract happening for no reason. It's shaped by the geometry of the field. That's the math of it. It's even more strongly embedded with math because it posits the math as, the Platonic forms of the math. Whereas the materialist models are like, oh, math is just something that happens, and then we put forth, we make up the math to describe it as an instrument. Sorry, I got a little spittle. I ain't gonna redo the video. I ramble on, I make videos, and I have fun doing it, because this is very important. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Do you know what you're talking about? Like what philosophies, what metaphysics, what models in theoretical physics are you defending to put forth your views on history, on politics, on conspiracies? What is your foundation? I don't know, some of you. You just keep telling me I'm wrong. And then it's like, more and more comes out, and it's like, yeah, see, that's what I was talking about years ago. And it's like, yeah, but you're still wrong, buddy. And it's like, okay, I'm not sure that I am. Maybe I am, though. And that's for you to tell me, right? What are you talking about? It's like, what? So you recognize, well, we don't hold on to a linear model in theoretical physics anymore. Okay, so what's your philosophy? How does that relate back to the dynamic causation models, the organic, living, spiritual universe posited in ancient past, which the linear causation mechanistic models were directly opposed to and used as a way to separate from that philosophy? Okay, so take a stance. So you're denying now this linear progression, basic materialism. Are you accepting the spiritual, organic, living cosmos views or not? Okay, right? I mean, that's fine. But then what are you putting forth? What is your position then? That's what I don't get with some of you. It's like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? You're telling me I'm wrong. So what are you saying? I don't know. I'm not sure you know. Okay? I mean, I'm just saying here. Do you? Like, what is your position? I don't know with some of you. You just philosophy, we don't really need it. Just science. And then you sit here and then you tell everybody what to do. You gotta wear a mask, you gotta vaccinate. Well, that's not science. Telling people what to do is not science. So you can't sit here and be like, I don't do philosophy, I just do science. And then sit here and then make up rules telling people that it's ethics, that we have to obey your orders, which, you're opining on ethics, you're opining on government policy. None of that is science. So you can't sit here and support this shit and be like, well, I don't do philosophy, I just do science. Bullshit! None of you support mandates that tell people what to do. I dropped my light. Got a little too worked up there. No, it won't work. And now we're in darkness. Not really, because there's other lights. Is that a metaphor? For what? One light going off? Maybe a metaphor said I should wrap it up, buddy. Thanks for watching this long. I appreciate that. But that's what I'm saying. What is your position? Because my position, I got a model of theoretical physics. I got a model of philosophy. That supports my conspiracy theories. Okay. You want to tell me I'm wrong about my conspiracy theories? I thought, the human trafficking cabal, they're raping children and eating babies. You're crazy! You're crazy! You're such an idiot! Wear the mask! Take the vaccine! You're crazy idiot! And then it's like, hey man, I think they're raping children and eating babies. And it's like, that's what people told you 10 years ago. And then you were like, you're crazy! And then you try to tell them what to do. Oh, no, the virus didn't come from a lab. And it's like, well, maybe the virus didn't come from a lab. You still should have obeyed the government. Really? I think that's dumb. Okay. That's all I'm asking. Let's wrap it up, right? Get down the basic materialism model. Understand it. Then understand that, what your position is. Are you supporting that? Or are you providing a different model? So, no, I don't support this basic materialism clockwork universe. I support this type of understanding. Okay, then what type of understanding is that? Like, what is your model? What are you talking about? I have a model of philosophy, theoretical physics, related to the holographic fractal model with, which, for the purpose of this video, I'm very clearly taking a stance, mathematical Platonism. Okay, that's a big part to get. The field exists in this mathematical structure beyond the material itself, beyond our perception of the material itself. And that's what shapes and organizes our perception of the matter. So this mathematical Platonism, and I think all of them, it's all Platonism to an extent. But, because it's, the forms and the form of the good and love and all that. And then, but I ain't getting into all that. But then basic mathematical Platonism, the field, geometry, math exists beyond the material reality, beyond our perception of the material reality. Because I'm not a dualist, like there's a material reality and then there's a spiritual reality. No, dude, there's, there's this, it is weird to keep doing this, I know. At least I'm not nipple and touching again. Nippy, nippy, nips, boop, boop. All right, mathematical Platonism. Big part, big foundational part of my conspiracy theories. Mathematical Platonism. Not just consciousness, it's that too. And they're related concepts, okay? But, of course. And so that's what you got to get down. Like, what are you saying then? What are you saying? It's not, defend a certain philosophy. Defend some theoretical physics models. Have a fucking stance. If you're going to keep telling people they're wrong, especially to the extent that they have to obey your orders or somebody else's orders. I'm still not over that, I know. We've moved past that, I know. But, even if it's not, you want to have a position on what happened in the past. You're going to tell people, no, spirituality, that's not real. Okay, then what is real? You tell me. What is your position then? Because that's what I don't know. I don't know what the hell some of you are talking about. You tell me I'm wrong, but you don't really, address the points I make. You just tell me I'm wrong. It's like, okay, well then how? Wrong in what way? See, when I call the mainstream models wrong, I'm putting forth my own position that challenges that. So when you tell me I'm wrong, what position are you putting forth that challenges it? I don't know. And that's why I get frustrated, because it's just like, why do people keep telling me I don't know what I'm talking about when they don't have any, they don't provide anything that shows that they know what they're talking about. And it all relates, right? This all relates to politics and conspiracy theories, because what are the, because all of this relates to the esoteric philosophy occult. What do the governments try to do throughout history? Is they try to move away. The institutionalized religions were it provides, institutionalized religion. They can really get into the differences between that and this, but they tried to distance themselves from that kind of naturalist, that's not what I want to say, living cosmos, that organic view in favor of, a lot of religious dualism. But the religions try to remove people away from the cult. Oh, no, don't do astrology, don't do tarot. They clearly did that, right? Especially in the past. But then, I focus more on what mainstream science did, which very clearly, undeniably moved away from these type of philosophies with their materialist structure, with their, at one point, linear causation models. Reductionism. Very clearly did that. They teach this in schools still. But then it's okay, so if you're denying that, then what are you saying? Or are you supporting that? Well, then defend it. Defend reductionism then. Right? When I challenge reductionism all the time, I keep doing it. Defend that position then. Or put forth something else. Do something. I don't know. It's just, I also wanted to do the whole thing with the field, because I think that was probably a big point too. I should do its own 2 minute, 3, 4, 5. I'll try for 2 and then I end up doing 8. About the field shaping the matter and not just matter progressing linearly, which causes things. The field shapes matter and organizes it, which means it organizes it and create purposeful things, because it's not just randomly all happening, or not just, happening for no reason and just some linear path. It's dynamic causation, which is ordering it for a purpose to possibly expand its understanding of itself, right? I don't know. And it's just come up with the conspiracy theories as well. that's what the institutions have done, is they try to remove us away from this good philosophy in favor of these indoctrinated bullshit philosophies, mainstream religions, mainstream science, specifically defined as a certain type of reductionism and physicalism. And they have tried to do that, and it's all to keep us, because we're all part of this field, vibrating within this field, right? And I think they want to keep us in a consciousness is like related to the vibrations in the field, and they want to keep us in that like lower vibe, lower consciousness, and they're trying to rule over us. Because like system over and above is some of its parts, okay? Yeah, so like, you know, we're made of things, and we're over and above the sum of our parts, but then we're parts of bigger systems over and above ourselves. And that feedback and direct our behavior. But, and so, like, is something trying to get control over the collective consciousness of humanity? Is that right? The right way to put it? I don't know. But, like, you know, right? So it's, in order to really understand the conspiracy, you know, there's a certain philosophy that's important to get. And that's, you know, and part of the thing is I can show, it's like, well, they very clearly, institutions, government institutions, not all government, but mostly government, have tried to push forth philosophies which don't get this. And I think that's part of what they're doing, is try to manipulate us and have control over us. And I think it goes back to ancient times and deals with other types of beings. Yeah. So I'm crazy. Okay, then what are you saying? What is your models of philosophy and theoretical physics? You're telling me I'm wrong. What do you got? That's what I want to know. And that, I think, will end it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it.